like to offer a special welcome to those of you who are here for the first time. If you're interested in learning more, just complete a guest card, which you'll find in the pew rack in front of you. Place it in the collection plate later in the service, and we'll make sure to reach back out to you. If you're watching remotely, we invite you to visit our website at uucleveland.org or just send us an email. As we prepare to enter into sacred time and space, connecting with our deepest selves and with one another, please take a moment to set any of your electronic devices to worship mode. Please join me now in reciting the words of our chalice lighting, found on the yellow card in the pew rack in front of you. We cultivate trust with one another by celebrating differences, honoring boundaries, and offering compassion and care. We listen to each other deeply with curiosity and wonder. We speak for ourselves without need to defend ourselves or persuade each other. We create safe and brave space for healthy conflict, creativity, and fun. We reconcile through forgiving and making amends when we hurt one another.
Thank you, Greg. I think everybody is just waiting for you to say, set your devices to worship mode, because it just feels like there's a response there that's expectation gratified. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Randy Partain. My pronouns are they, them, and I am delighted to be with you in worship today, whether you're joining us in person or online. I was going to read some words from bell hooks this morning, and I just want to say, if you are here this morning, you probably have no idea how many people have scrambled and ached to make sure that this morning is meaningful for you, even down to the last minute, trying to decide what the best way to say a thing will be so that another person is not upset or offended by the way that it is said. We have been so intentional, so many different people putting this morning together, and it has not all gone as we might have planned or wanted it to. And you're here, and we're here together, and it's amazing. And so I just want to take a moment for us as we begin and create this sacred space together to remember the words of our covenant about how we create safe and brave space, to remember our capacity to be generous with one another, and to recognize the connection that we have, not just to the people here, but to the people joining us online, to all the people in our lives that are going to be influenced or in some way impacted by what happens here today. There is so much connection in this room right now, working for our good. So may we take a moment to acknowledge that as we enter into worship together. We are going to sing together hymn number 318 in the gray hymnal, We Would Be One. Before we do that, though, I invite you to take a moment to greet those around you. If you see a face you don't recognize, please make a special effort to let that person know that they are welcome today. Each week, we take time to share the joys and concerns that we bring together into our community. And this particular week, we want to share exuberant joy about our stewardship campaign. I have been grateful to our stewardship team that gratitude has been a constant value that they have held up as we have gone through our stewardship campaign over the last several weeks. I think they have some information about where we are, but also I know they want to express their deep gratitude to everyone here who has contributed to the well-being of our community. Come on up.
Good morning. Can you hear me? You notice the notes in my hand. My memory is not as good as it used to be. So, like Mark Twain, who said the same thing, as he got older, his memory got worse. So he had to take a piece of paper to remember stuff. But he said that when he was a younger man, his memory was so good that he could remember stuff that never even happened. So today, we would like to express our deep gratitude to the entire congregation for their work on our stewardship year. I want to make note that we have 263 adults, couples, and families who make pledges to this congregation. 92 of them increased their pledge for next year. We have 7 brand new pledgers, and 38 of us were able to keep their pledges even. I'd like us all to demonstrate our approbation for that record around pledges. Two things I want to share. The first is that stewardship offers an antidote to the disease of greed that is alive in our land, whether you are of great wealth or you are of little means. And stewardship allows us to do 2 things that fight greed. One is to express our gratitude for all the things we're grateful for, and the other is to show our generosity for those things that are important to us. And I also want to make the point that we have a wonderful stewardship committee, and if you would stand as I call you out, all the members of the stewardship committee and all the people who opened their homes, their hearts, and their hands to host a gratitude gathering. Would you please stand if you are willing to and receive the approbation of this congregation? Thank you.
I think it's ironic that we did the song this morning, We Would Be One, because in the song We Would Be One, it talks about pledging ourselves. And so the idea of pledge, we talk about that as the annual pledge that we give, the annual commitment to our congregation. But in the bigger picture, it is about what we give of ourselves beyond that annual commitment. But this is stewardship, and this is the end of the stewardship campaign, so we would like to thank everyone who has made an annual commitment, an annual financial commitment to this congregation. And in the bigger picture, we are grateful to everyone who pledges themselves to our congregation. And so I would like to recognize some people. And I would like to ask you to stand as you are able and willing. If you have, because here's the deal. It's 2024, right? And we only reunified our congregations in 2019. So the truth is, how long have we been supporting UUCC? 5 years at the most, right? But our roots go back much deeper. And so I would like to thank people who have supported our congregation for 40 years or more, if any of you are here today. And we may not have, because, you know. Yes. If you have been supporting UUCC or you can remain standing if you wish. If you would like to join them in our group, and if you've been supporting for 30 years or more. How about 20 years? 20 years? Thank you. 10 years? Thank you. And finally, we are so grateful to everyone who has pledged as we were in the process of reunifying, who joined for the first time, or who has pledged in the past year. And so the people who have started supporting this congregation most recently, would you please stand and know that we are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kat and Lou. I imagine if folks had stayed standing, most of the room would be standing up at the end. And it's important to recognize those who have been contributing for so long and have gotten us to the point that we are today so that we can continue moving forward. And those of you who stood at the very end, who are newer to our congregation, that's the legacy that you get to carry forward as well. And you are creating a new generation of people practicing that generosity and that gratitude here. I have to start off our joys and concerns. Well, first of all, if you're joining us at home and there are joys and concerns that you want to share with the congregation, I invite you to put that in the comments down below the video so that the congregation will know about those things. But I goofed, and for whatever reason, I misread our calendar. I believed that Harry's Kitchen Crew was going to provide some food for us today. I am really grateful to Harry's Kitchen Crew for the meals that they provide, but this was not a week that they were intending to do that. And so, as a practical example, an unintended practical example of exactly what Kat was talking about, there are a number of people here who have pulled together and made sure that we have food, that we will be able to share a meal together. It will be simple, it will be delightful, and you will have one another at your table to keep you company, so it will be beautiful. But also, we had the money to just run and get the food that we needed to put something together, and both were necessary. Because of your contributions, we could just buy the food that we need, and because people are willing to step up, we have people downstairs that are willing to make the preparations and set the place for us. So all of that comes together to create our community, and I am grateful and apologetic and grateful. And so this stone is for that. We have a stone of hope. Kelly has an appointment that she is stressed about, and so we wish for reducing of that stress and hope for that appointment. Peter Iglesias is having surgery today, following a surgery yesterday for a brain bleed. And so our prayers and good wishes go to Peter and his family for his healing and well-being and for their peace of mind. We also want to lift up 2 Ohio families who are part of the ACLU lawsuit against the state of Ohio, HB 68. This is the first court hearing was this past week for a temporary restraining order. So hope and resilience and sustaining for those 2 families. We have a stone of celebration, celebrating the birth of Cynthia Taylor's granddaughter, Beatrice Olivia Pearl Shant. Is that right? Beatrice Olivia, born March 27th. We celebrate that birth and our deep hopes for her future. And our impact program is happy to share that it is now fully staffed, and that is a very good thing. Gratitude to all those who volunteered for impact in the interim. That was another place where we came together in a big way. So thank you, and we celebrate with impact. What else do you bring into this space? We welcome all of who we are, and if you want to place a stone in the water to acknowledge any joys or concerns you carry with you today, I invite you to come forward at this time. was reminded that Joanne Orr celebrated her 98th birthday on Friday. And so she is usually with us online. Happy birthday, Joanne. And we place a stone for all of those joys and concerns that might have been shared online today. Recognizing that these stones are just a physical, visual representation of all that connects us to one another. May we hold those connections as precious so that by sharing our joys, they are magnified, and by sharing our burdens, they are lessened. Alan, Georgia is on vacation, much deserved, long awaited, and so I'm flipping things around in the service a little bit today. We're going to engage in a spiritual practice in the latter half of the service. But I wanted to set it up with talking about our value of interdependence that we're exploring this month. We've gotten most of the petals of this graphic explored. We've got interdependence and then plurality in May. We're trying on a new way of expressing our Unitarian Universalist values. And as we've done that over the course of the year, we've heard a lot of language that sounds really similar to what we're familiar with. This one is no different. Interdependence, we state as we honor the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. That seems pretty familiar. Unitarian Universalists have said that for a while. Here's the part that's a little bit new, because we are stating clearly what we say that asks of us. If we are going to honor the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, then, with humility and reverence, we covenant to protect earth and all beings from exploitation, creating and nurturing sustainable relationships of repair, mutuality, and justice. So if we are going to honor the interdependent web of all existence, we covenant, we make a mutual promise with one another, and Unitarian Universalists make mutual promises with other Unitarian Universalists. We covenant to protect earth and all beings from exploitation and to create and nurture sustainable relationships of repair, mutuality, and justice. We are not going to get into all of that in the next few weeks. There's a lot there that we could unpack. But one of the things that I've been reading recently is a book by David Brooks called How to Know a Person. I don't know if you're familiar with David Brooks. I am not really familiar with him, but some other people have said, oh, you're reading that book. I know David Brooks from this place and that place, and so it's a familiar name to a lot of folks. But one of the things that David Brooks says, he asks, if you're going to get to know a person, you should know what a person is. So what is a person? And he says a person is a point of view. And we can talk about the physicality of what it means to be a person, and we can talk about how our brains work and how our anatomy works and all of that stuff. But a person, if you want to get to know a person, we have to recognize that a person is a point of view. Every person you meet, David says, is a creative artist who takes the events of life and over time creates a very personal way of seeing the world. Like any artist, each person takes the experiences of a lifetime and integrates them into a complex representation of the world. Our minds create a world with beauty and ugliness, excitement and tedium, friends and enemies, and we live in that construction that our minds create. People don't see the world with our eyes, we see it with our entire lives. That's an important thing to recognize if we want to recognize and honor our interdependence with one another, that we are honoring an interdependence with lots and lots of different points of view, lots of different lives, lots of different ways of experiencing the world. And there are a couple of things that get in the way of us honoring our connection with other people as an interdependent web. Part of it is we focus an awful lot on ourselves as human beings. We're wired to do that. We want to make sure that we're okay with the people around us, and so we concentrate a lot on how other people are seeing us. We concentrate a lot on how our perspective is being heard by other people. We want to make sure that we get to express what matters to us. it's a little egocentric, but it's how we are. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just what people do. And a lot of times, we assume that the way that we see the world is an objective way to see the world, and therefore everybody ought to see the world the same way we do. We don't appreciate that other people have very different perspectives. It's like the story where one person is standing on one side of a river and they see somebody on the other side of the river and they say, "Hey, how do I get to the other side of the river?" And the person shouts back, "You are on the other side of the river." We don't get that other people are experiencing the world very differently than we might be. And so we focus on our own perspectives an awful lot. The other thing that we do is we assume things about other people. Sometimes we assume not so great things about other people. David Brooks points out that when people are entering business school to get an MBA, they're asked, "Why are you here? What are you entering this business program for?" And they'll talk about their lofty goals, their aspirations for the world. They want to make the world a better place. They want to be able to generate ideas that they get traction in the world. They have a really idealistic vision of why they are entering business school. And then you ask them, "Why do you think all of your peers are entering this program?" "Well, they're probably in it for the money." We have this problem where we think other people's minds and motivations are lesser than our own. We make some assumptions about people. We also get lots and lots of data these days about groups of people. And we assume that if we know information about a group of people, that we know about an individual's life. We make an assumption that if we know that somebody falls in a particular category that we've seen some statistics about, that we can say some definite things about that person's experience. And the truth is, we need to be interested in individual ideas and emotions and experiences if we want to get to know another person deeply and fully. We can't just rely on data. And by the same token, if we know one thing about a person's life, that doesn't mean we know everything about that person's life. A lot of times we think if we know who a person voted for, or we know what neighborhood they live in, or we know what kind of education they have or don't have, we think we can name everything that there is to know about them. And we can't. We know one thing. So those assumptions that we make about other people, paired with our own kind of obsession with how we are being seen and heard, keeps us from connecting with other people more deeply. But the great news is we are a spiritual community, and we engage in lots and lots of different spiritual practices that can help us do things differently. We even have some values that we've explored this year that can help us do things a little differently. And one of the things is that we centered things on liberating love. One of the ways that we defined love is active commitment to another person's well-being. That's one way. There might be a lot of meaningful ways we define love. But that sense of having a deep emotional concern about another person's well-being might invite a sense of compassion, a sense of tenderness that takes us out of ourselves if we really mean these things that we say we are about. Another thing is just recognizing that knowing another human being fully and deeply is a whole body experience. It's not an intellectual experience. It's not just a ticker tape of numbers that we can say, okay, now I know everything there is to know about this person. Knowing another human being is something that requires vulnerability on our part. Really getting to know them is something that we feel. It's not just a collection of statistics. And next month we're going to explore pluralism. The words in our covenant for the value of pluralism say that we're going to have active curiosity. In fact, our congregational covenant says we're going to listen to one another with curiosity and wonder. And that's another way for us to remove our assumptions and step out of our own way of seeing the world and be curious about somebody else's perspective. It requires us being centered and grounded in who we are. Because if we're not confident about what we believe and what we care about, then it's really easy for us to get wrapped up in how other people are receiving us and whether our perspective is being heard. But when we use our spiritual practices to be grounded and centered in ourselves, we can more easily attend to other human beings. David Brooks lifts up this story that connects directly to our value of generosity, and maybe you know it. I had heard it before, but it's been a long time. It's about Dr. Ludwig Gutmann. Are you familiar with that name? He was a German Jew who escaped Nazi Germany in 1939 and he found a job at a hospital in Britain that served paraplegics, mostly men who were injured in the war. And when he first started working there, the hospital heavily sedated these men and kept them confined to their beds. And Gutmann did not view them the same way that the other doctors at the hospital viewed them. He cut back on their sedatives, he forced them out of bed, he started throwing balls at them and doing other things that got them active. And as a result, his peers kind of summoned him to a tribunal, the way we would expect. And they said, "Doctor, I don't know what you think you're doing, but these men are moribund cripples. What exactly do you think they are?" And Gutmann said, "I see that they are the best of men." His generosity of spirit informed how he viewed these other human beings in a very different way than what his environment might have suggested about them. And as a result, he continued organizing games, first at the hospital and then throughout the nation, and then in 1960 that led to the first Paralympic Games. A really big deal because someone had a generosity of spirit and was able to see a group of people very differently than others were seeing them. We are all capable of that same generosity toward other human beings. We just don't exercise it as often as we might. Maybe you do. Not speaking about every individual. There's somebody here, I'm sure, that just felt a little, wait a second. One more thing that our spiritual practices might do for us is to invite a holistic attitude about what a person is. Tolstoy said people are like rivers, and the water is one and the same in all of us. But in every river, it's narrow in some places and wide in others. Here it is broad, here it runs swiftly, there it is still or clear or cold or muddy or warm, and it is the same with people. Every person bears within them the seed of every human quality, and now manifests one, and now another, and quite frequently we are unlike ourselves while still remaining the same person. Sometimes we see someone angry, and we say, "Wow, what an angry person." But we have seen them in one moment. We take a snapshot of them. We know only that one expression. There are other times when they express love and delight and wonder and sadness and all kinds of other things. They're not an angry person. They were angry in a moment, just like we have been angry in moments from time to time, and all those other things. If we want to seriously covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation, if we want to take seriously the call to create and nurture sustainable relationships of repair and mutuality and justice, we first need to see other people as being worthy of that commitment. And we'll talk about non-human beings that we're interconnected with next week. We'll get there. But honoring the mutuality of our interdependence requires us to experience one another, to know one another deeply and fully. And so the invitation today for you is to consider what gets in the way. What habits of yours get in the way of that deep sense of connection with other people who are part of this interdependent web of all existence? Do you get wrapped up in your own point of view? Are you hyper worried about how you're being seen by other people? Do you think that your perspective is objective and that everybody ought to share your views about all the things? Do you think knowing one thing about a person tells you everything you need to know about them? Whatever it is, our spiritual practices can help us engage with those and shift into a more connected mindset. And our spiritual connections can help us bear witness more fully to the human beings around us. And the reason that I am inviting us to connect with our spiritual practices to help us have compassionate and curious and generous hearts is because I know we each practice different things in our spiritual lives. Well, we are going to engage in a couple of short practices later in the service, because sometimes when I mention spiritual practices, people say, "I don't know what that means. There's nothing in my life that I do like that." And it is not difficult, but there might be some things that you're not familiar with that you can begin practicing. And so we're going to practice in just a moment some ways that we might be more open to our interconnection with other human beings. For the moment, you can meditate on what it is in your life that gets in the way that a spiritual practice might help you address and move from. More to come.
April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and today's offering recipient is Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, which supports survivors of rape and sexual abuse, promotes healing and prevention, and advocates for social change. Each year, over 46,000 people, 1/3 of them young people, are supported by participating in the center's counseling, advocacy, and education programs. Whether you were hurt yesterday or decades ago, they are here to support you. I invite you now to support Cleveland Rape Crisis Center by placing an offering, cash or check, made payable to UUCC in the collection plate as it is passed. You can also contribute via Cash App to $UUCC 44122. Please use the memo line to indicate today's date and our plate recipient, Cleveland Rape Crisis Center.
The sound of
pervasive interconnectedness is fundamental to the sense of identity that non-Western traditions foster. When members of the Native American Blackfoot tribe meet each other, they don't ask, "How are you?" Instead, they ask, "How are the connections?" Similarly, in Central and Southern Africa, a guiding principle for life is Ubuntu, which is frequently translated as, "I am because you are because I am." In many indigenous communities, the type of self-seeking behavior promoted by neoliberalism would be seen as a form of madness. Traditional Chinese sages similarly base their moral compass on the foundation of the interrelatedness of all life, the realization of which they called Ren. Philosopher Cheng Yi declared that a person who achieves the state of Ren regards heaven, earth, and all things as one body. There is nothing not himself.
Listening to the birds through the window almost makes me think we should be talking about our connection with nature this week instead of next week, but maybe they will come back. We will invite them back and see if they will be here next week. So a lot of times we take in information, we say, okay, so this is how our brains work, this is how human psychology works, this is how my perception of the world works, and then we go on about our lives and shrug and say, well, that's a shame. And we don't really do anything about it because we don't know what we can do about it. And as a spiritual community, sometimes we talk about spiritual practices in such a broad sense because there are so many different theologies and practices represented in this room that we don't want to say that any one person's is right and any other person's is wrong. And that sometimes means that we don't really provide any practical way to go back into life and say, here is a spiritual practice you can do something with in your life. So we're going to have an experience of a couple of those today, short ones. And you can extend them if you would like in your life. And this does not depend on any particular relationship with God. If you pray, then perhaps that is a spiritual practice that also can feed into these things. We can pray for other human beings in a way that reminds us of our connection and reinforces our sense of interdependence, certainly. But there are other things that are not connected to a specific theology that we might do as well. And so one of the things that we might do, I'll just invite you to think about something you did recently all by yourself. Something where you were solely responsible for whatever it was you were doing. You did it all by yourself. It might be something that you're celebrating. It might be something that you wish you were not doing all by yourself, but something that you did all by yourself. And if it is a family-friendly thing, I invite you to just be willing to share, whoever is willing, to share a thing you did all by yourself. I won't bring the mic around. I'll just repeat because it'll be a short thing that you did. Pat?
Reaching out to someone that you know is in pain, emotionally or physically, taking their food, sitting with them, listening to them.
So you all by yourself sat with another person and listened to them and took them some food. And I would challenge that you weren't all by yourself because you were connecting with another person. But I appreciate that you wanted to take that initiative and be connected. I think that's a spiritual practice in itself. Just that we say, I'm going to go sit and listen with another human being, that is incredible. And it's a gift that we can give. Yeah, what's a thing you did all by yourself? You puttered in your yard. What does puttering involve? Uh-huh. Making sure your dog doesn't chase the birds. And how do How do you know where to stop puttering? Yeah. It's fenced in. Did you build the fence? You paid someone else. Some other people built the fence. Yeah. Who decided where the fence should be built? Another human being. Yeah. But did you get to define where is your yard and where is somebody else's yard? Somebody else decided, and the yard that you were puttering around in, is there a house on that property that you live in? Did you build that house? Yeah, 100 years. You built that house 100 years ago. See, this is where the spiritual practice breaks down a little bit. But you see that anything that we think we have done all by ourselves, it involves other people. There are other people that were involved in building the things that surround us. There were other people that were involved in creating the space that we occupy. There were other people who were involved in something that we are doing. And it may be people that are dead, but we are connected with them, and we are continuing to live with and around and to make use of the things that other people created. Was there another hand over here? You enjoy seeing the flame. So Karen sometimes does some surgery on our candle so that she can see the flame. This is public confession. It's a different spiritual practice. You're giving away all of our secrets. There's a tuna fish can underneath the candle so that it raises it up a little bit. That's the secret if you are doing your own chalice work at home and need a little something. So the candles are designed a certain way to have like this ethereal glow, that the flame is inside the globe and it just kind of glows. And some people don't like that. They like to see the flame. And so Karen has taken it upon herself. If you have a different experience of the candle and would prefer to see the ethereal glow, maybe you and Karen can talk and you can share your different perspectives of life. But I also would invite thinking about, what did you trim the candle with? I mean, even that simple thing of there was a tool involved. You didn't just bite it off with your teeth, right? Don't answer that question. But and someone created the candle to begin with. Somebody created the chalice. It's a beautiful chalice. These things were provided for us. The chalice is a symbol because some other people decided that it was a meaningful symbol. We've talked about the chalice as a symbol of our faith before. It came out of an act of service. It came from the Unitarian Service Committee, and some people decided on that symbol. We didn't get to decide that. We connect to it. We connect to other people. And maybe through the flame we connect with other people here. And maybe through people lighting candles at home or a chalice at home, they connect with us here. There are lots and lots of different ways that we can find human connection with whatever it is that we have the illusion of doing all by ourselves. And it doesn't take away from our accomplishment. It doesn't take away from anything that we can be proud of in our lives. We can still be proud of all the things that we accomplish. And other people are going to benefit from those things too. That connects us to other people as well. But when we take a moment, maybe it's that moment where we arrive at a place a few minutes early and we just want to sit in the car for a few moments and say, who were all of the people that were involved in getting me here today? That's a spiritual practice. And it reframes our way of seeing other people so that we can have that sense of curiosity, generosity, wonder, connection. One more really brief spiritual practice. If you've ever, yes, you have a... I take photographs. You take photographs? Photographs freeze a moment and connect Jack with flowers and nature and people as a spiritual practice. And maybe as a spiritual practice, we might wonder what has happened since that photograph. There's a sense that captures a moment in time and more happens. Flowers continue to to have a lifespan. People continue to grow and change and think new things and experience new things. And so if you are around and you see a bumper sticker or a t-shirt that gives you an impression that you know something about a person, there's another little spiritual practice that you might engage in, which is asking yourself what you do not know. So if I see a bumper sticker on the back of someone's car, and it says a single word even, like the name of a political candidate, I might think I know everything there is to know about that person because I know the name of a person that they voted for, or that they want me to think that they voted for, or that they have considered voting for at some point. And so I can ask myself, what else do I not know about this person? What kind of home do they live in? How many children do they have? What are their relationships with their children like? What is their relationship with their parents like? They have to have parents, whether they have children or not. They came from somewhere. Are they here for their whole lives? Have they been here just a little while? Did they drive this car from some other distant place? What do I not know about this person? I cannot spend enough time. There's not enough time in my life to name all of the things that I do not know about another person that I've just seen a t-shirt or a bumper sticker. But my mind wants me to convince myself that that's shorthand for everything. That bumper sticker or that t-shirt is shorthand for that entire person's existence. And so a spiritual practice is taking a moment and reflecting on what do I not know, and to recognize the volumes of information that we could still be curious about and we could still learn about another human being. These are two spiritual practices, and I only did the second one because down in the kitchen they said, just stretch it out just a tiny bit. And so we did. There's going to be a great time downstairs where we can think about other people's perspectives as well. The racial justice leadership team has done some really intentional work in planning this. I'll tell you more about that in just a second. But whatever spiritual practices we might engage in our lives, they can be useful ways that we dismantle our own insecurities to be grounded and centered in our own selves so that we can connect meaningfully with other people with a sense of curiosity, generosity, a sense of gratitude for that connection, and a sense that we are all in this together. We're going to talk next week about our relationship with the planet, and then on the last Sunday of this month, we're going to have our observance of Passover. We're not going to be spiritual tourists, but we are going to talk about what the difference might be between freedom and liberation, and how liberation is an expression of our interconnectedness with everybody. And so I hope that we get to continue to explore this theme. But for the moment, we are going to do yet another spiritual practice, which is singing together. Sometimes just listening to a song or singing a song that reminds us where we want to go, just listening to the offertory music about one voice, and that we all are sharing one voice and one song. That can be a spiritual practice in and of itself. But we're going to sing together, Our World is One World. It is hymn number 134. It's in the gray hymnal. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we join our voices together. So, speaking of fear and greed making holes in our relationships, I want to remind you that I am not going to email you from some random email address asking you for gift cards or to buy surprise certificates for the staff or anything like that. I will always email you from my uucleveland.org email address. I know a lot of people in the congregation have been receiving fake emails over the last week. It has really seemed to ramp up over the last 7 days for some reason. I don't know. Maybe spring is here, and that's got us, we get spam emails. But if you're ever in doubt about a request that you think might be coming from me, just call me and ask. My phone number is at the bottom of all of my emails that you get officially from me, so it will be easy to call. And if my phone number is not there, it probably did not come from me. I am never in a meeting and too busy to answer a call if I have been texting you or emailing you about something. So, just making sure I give that reminder. I put it out on Facebook. Now it's on the recording. I apologize that we are in a world. I can't apologize for that. I regret, I'm sad that we're in a world where people try to take advantage of our generosity, because I do want us to be able to practice generosity freely and without fear. That being said, next week, we are going to have our farm planning for the junior and senior high farm trip. So if you are in those age groups, I hope you're here for that planning. And then on the 28th, there's going to be a special multi-generational RE experience that Alan is calling Stranded. And we are not going to be able to use our devices. We have to interact with other human beings face to face. And so, so those two things are coming up after the services next week and on the 28th. Today, we will have a scrumptious meal. It's going to be taco bar, and we'll have some vegetarian options, and we've had some great people down there working to make sure that there are settings for everybody that wants to partake. And our racial justice leadership team was listening in December when microaggressions were brought up as something that people have experienced in our community at some point or another. And there were some questions about what that even means. And so they have prepared a program for us to safely explore the topic of microaggressions and how we might recognize them, and as Unitarian Universalists, what our response might be when we experience them. So I'm really excited about that opportunity to connect and learn together as a community. I also want to let you know that on Tuesday, May 7th, this is still coming up ways down the road, but we need you to put a date on your calendar, because Greater Cleveland Congregations is going to hold a significant pretrial justice event addressing our county representatives. As you know, numbers matter when we show up about important issues in the world, and this is an issue that we've talked about quite a bit. The average time from arrest to when a person hears the charges against them in Cuyahoga County is 51 days. That's almost 2 months of being removed from your life. So just think about what would change in your life if you were detached from all of your responsibilities and the things that you need to take care of and the relationships in your life for 51 days. For some people, that means they don't have a job anymore, and for some people, that means damaged relationships. For some people, that means their home is at risk. And that's before the actual trial begins. So we have an opportunity to effect change through our collaborative relationships, our interdependence with Greater Cleveland Congregations. And our core team is going to be downstairs today. I don't know how you're going to be dispersed throughout the room. Do you all want to identify yourselves so that folks can find you and talk to you if you're on our GCC core team? There's Lori. Okay, so you see some hands, some people. If you're interested in this event, there are some folks that you can make eye contact with. And they're setting up a carpool for the May 7th event so that you don't even have to worry about your transportation there. So we'll announce that again, I'm sure, because we've got time between now and May 7th. As we go forth from this place, maybe just downstairs to this place on another floor, but as we leave this space together, may we continue to create sacred space in all of the human relationships that we are able to acknowledge and be aware of. May we honor that interdependence with curiosity and grace, and with a recognition that what we do matters to many, many, many lives. May we carry that hope and that generosity of spirit with us. Amen, and blessed be.
Please join me in extinguishing the chalice with the words found on the back of the yellow card in the pew rack in front of you. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.